Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome again to our continuing journey through the season of Lent. The particular emphasis of our worship service today, indicated by the lessons, is on the graciousness of God. In these lessons during the Lenten season, the Church is trying to emphasize basic teachings, basic things that Christians need to know in order to be the children of God. So as we head toward the cross and toward Jesus' death and resurrection, then we say, what's most important? And today the particular focus is on what God has done by being a gracious and merciful Father. The service is going to be slightly different today because we're doing the choir piece first. It's a piece called The Prayer of St. Francis. St. Francis. St. Patrick, excuse me. And since St. Patrick's Day is on Wednesday, it's appropriate for this week, but it too, the words are initially thought to have been written by St. Patrick himself and are sometimes called the St. Patrick breastplate, and they talk about Christ being all around us, above us, below us, ahead of us, behind us, wherever, that Christ surrounds us, and thus we are people who are cared for by God. So it's appropriate both for the celebration coming up of St. Patrick's Day and also for the theme of our worship today. So we will collect the prayer requests in a moment after the choir sings. This parable, as with all of the parables, is a story in which it is a word picture where we are supposed to see ourselves. It's about us. in this story, Jesus, the introduction is that the religious folks were all gathered together and noting, ew, Jesus eats with all the wrong people. He is making himself unclean. He is not being a good, proper Jew. Surely a good rabbi would know you should not associate with those kinds of people, the tax collectors who were known cheats and sinners. So Jesus tells a parable. It has been called the prodigal son. That's a misnomer. The parable must be seen as the story of the merciful father. Watch either son. The first son, the younger, is so arrogant as to ask for the part of the estate that will fall to him before the father dies. But the father generously gives him his money, and he converts it all into cash and goes to some distant country where he wastes it. Gets to be in a bad way, has to go feed pigs. One can understand Jesus' audience, the good religious folks, saying, ugh, what can one expect for such awful kids? They deserve to be feeding pigs. Pigs were part of the unclean beasts as far as Jews were concerned. The son wakes up one day not having enough to eat and decides that the thing to do is to go back to the father, and he prepares his speech, goes home. But the father is out looking for him, sees him a long way off, does what no decent father should have done. He picks up his skirts. He wasn't supposed to show his ankles in public. Picks up his skirt and he runs to the son, grabs this filthy, pig-feeding child, and hugs him and kisses him. Ew, yuck! The son begins his speech. The father cuts him off. Doesn't allow him to say, I deserve to be your hired hand. Instead, must surely have been shaking his head, saying, my son doesn't understand who I am. And instead of addressing the son and his comments, turns and says to one of his slaves, go get a robe, a ring, and sandals, and kill the fatted calf.